inshallah. Oh, look at that. Lots of pens if anyone needs a pen. So Sister Malak, maybe for the men. Okay, so why don't you count how many times you said true and have a count for a tally for the husband, a one for the wife. Okay, if you had 6 or more yeses or true to these statements, it means that your marriage is very child-centered, and we don't want to see you being parts of these nasty kind of statistics and statements I made before about kind of parenting or childhood or children taking away from your marriage. I decided to have the quiz early on in the talk, so kind of like even before you leave today, you think for yourself, maybe text your husband, or if he's sitting next to you, or your wife, and you kind of make a decision today, now, before even the workshop is done, to be like, you know what, I can't continue this, because statistics are not in my favor if I have 6 or more on this quiz, saying that my marriage is very, very focused on parenting. So inshallah, you make that decision for yourself, or maybe if you're not married, you can make that decision now, so you can take that into account, inshallah, when you find a partner. So here is the positive thing, because you might be thinking, okay, so like, do we not have children? Like, should we not ever have children? I'm happy with my marriage now. I don't want to really have it to sour, or, you know, I want to enjoy it the way it is. Here is something that they found in this report that's very promising, and that is that there is a sizable minority in the couples that they looked at, like over 1,000 couples, that actually having children did not subtract from the enjoyment and the happiness of their marriage. So that's great. We want to be a part of the 35%. Like, we want to be them, okay? So here are the 10 factors that I'm going to delve into more details now, the 10 factors that kind of characterized this sizable minority. Like, what was different about them? Because we want to be them. So there's going to be 10 factors that we're going to talk about in some details, and the 10 factors are divided into the big categories: social, cultural, and relational. Okay, so inshallah, we're going to go into every one, and for every single factor, I'm going to give you the numbers on how many points or percentage that increase happiness in their marriage or decreases happiness on the marriage. And inshallah, you can make notes for yourself where you find yourself there. So yes. All of the studies are done, yes. It's not going to be, yes. No. And unfortunately, most of psychology in general and studies, the majority of studies are done in the West, and which is a big problem. And not just done on the West, but it's done on average, white Americans. So that is definitely a problem. So it's an excellent point. But I think, though, when it comes to things like that, we're more similar than dissimilar. So I would still think that this is very much applicable. Okay? So the first thing is education. They found that young couples who are educated, meaning they have a college degree, that they actually had a stronger marriage, a happier marriage, and that having children did not take away from the enjoyment of their marriage. Okay? And that Americans without a college degree were about 3 times more likely to get divorced in the first 10 years of marriage than ones who had a college degree. That's a pretty sizable, okay? So college-educated parents are less likely to rate their future chances of separation and divorce as high. Second is money, okay? It's not a secret that when children come into the mix, that is a financial strain. And if there's already financial difficulties to begin with, then having children into that mix can really stress out an already stretched out situation. You know, whether it's diapers, whether it's thinking, do I take my child to Islamic school or not Islamic school, and having to pay that extra money, extracurricular activity, Quran classes, swimming classes, it all adds up to a big change in the couple's financial situation. And it's not necessarily how much money that is predictive of happiness in a marriage and the likelihood of divorce, but it's rather the stress, the pressure, the financial pressure. So if there's a lot of loans involved, like if you begin in a marriage and there's already a lot of loans and a financial responsibility, and you're putting kids into the mix, then that might stretch out that situation a little bit more. Now here's the thing, is that the income is maybe not related to marital happiness, but particularly for women, for wives, that it actually, when income is very low, it does predict that mothers will think about and consider divorce much more when they become mothers, okay? So it's not that women are materialistic, but it then becomes to, my child is not surviving in this kind of environment. And that financially stressed out spouses, again, especially wives, when they are in a marriage where it is financially kind of strained and then there's children in the mix, that they report that they are a little bit less happy in their marriage, about 7% less happy than people whose income is not stretched out. And women, again, specifically in marriages where there is more than $10,000 in debt in a marriage, they are more likely to be thinking about separation and divorce. So if you are a male or a female who are maybe not married and they're considering marriage and you already have debts, think about things like that, because it really does subtract from the quality of your marriage. All right. The other social factor is work and family, okay? So both mothers and fathers are 9% points more likely to say that they're very happy when they there's a sharing of the household chores. I know now men are thinking like, oh, actually, I'm very unhappy when I'm doing any work in the house. But what studies show is that actually when both men and women there's a little bit of help in the house, that actually both men and women report that they are very happy in their marriage. And the other thing is that when mothers are overemployed, and what that means is that, not that they are working, but that they are working way more hours than they would like. When mothers are working more hours than they would like, that what ends up happening, that marriage is much more prone to separation and divorce and lack of satisfaction and lower levels of marital happiness. So, you know, if you're thinking about children, or maybe you have children, and both the mothers and the father work, you might want to think about repackaging things a little bit. So, you know, if the mother continues to work and that's her choice, by all means, you can do so. But if you need to shave off your hours so you don't feel like you're overstretched, that's a conversation maybe that the partners can have. All right. The other predictive social factor is family and friends. Now, that could work for your marriage, or that could work against your marriage. So some of you who have in-laws living not too far away understand exactly what I mean by that. So it works for your marriage when you have a social support that is doing what it's supposed to do, which is socially support the couple, okay? Or you have extended family that's willing to socially support the couple. That these people tend to have less rates of divorce. They don't think about divorce. They don't think about separation. And they report that they are, look at this, like the previous predictor, we talked about 7% increase in happiness. We're talking about 23% reporting more that they are very happy in their marriage. So having this social support is really important. And then maybe since we are a community, we can talk about how can we do this on a community level. So maybe having like once a month a parents go away night where the parents chip in, hire a babysitter, and the masjid can provide the place, since there is like a place. You have no idea how much this can really rescue a marriage from divorce, much so than even maybe therapy or counseling together. Okay? So this is just an idea that you can think about, financially contributing to a couple of babysitters at the masjid and having a mandatory, once a month, parents' night out. You come, you drop your kids with somebody who's trustful, of course, and that is credentialed at a safe space at the masjid, and then you just have your couple of hours away from the kids, and you come back. Okay? So that's something I would highly encourage that we start something like that at the masjid. So if you look here, the dark blue, it probably does not look blue to you on this projector, are the group of people who are less likely to have high levels of support. When you compare them with the light blue, which is the group of people who have high levels of support, that the people separated by husband and wife. You see that, especially for the wife, having that social support is really, really a big predictor of how happy she is, very happy, not just happy, but very happy she is in the marriage. By the way, these studies take into account how old you are, your educational level, many things. So it's not because you're a young couple, you're an old couple, or that you're an educated or not educated. All of this stuff is calculated and taken out of it. Okay? For the husband, you still see a considerable increase in reporting very happy or very satisfied with the marriage, although it's a tiny bit more for the wife than for the husband, having that social support. Okay? So if you want to help divorces in this community, I'm talking to the masjid administrators, one thing that you can do is actually just provide a night out for the parents every now and then. And if people are here from different masajids, think about implementing that at all of the different masajids. Okay, something very easy to implement. The fifth factor, which I love, given this talk in a masjid, is that here's what they found. Faith, having faith, that this actually marital spirituality, not only was it one of the 10 predictors of being very satisfied in your marriage, but it was one of the top 5 predictors of both husbands and wives being very satisfied in the marriage. SubhanAllah, many of the questions that I get, many of the complaints that I hear in married couples is that when one of the couple is a lot more religious than the other and is more willing to invest spiritually and attend lectures or whatever, and the other one has a very different, understanding of Islam, maybe they're like, I'm going to only pray and fast Ramadan and that's all I'm going to do, or maybe even they're not praying at all. And that difference in how they understand Islam, not just understanding Islam, but how much time they're willing to invest in understanding and learning more about Islam, it is a huge predictor for how successful your marriage is. And by the way, by this I don't mean religiosity. Someone who's praying like 30 rak'ahs, and doing qiyam layl every night. I'm not saying that. Of course, that's good. But if this is not being reflected on their mannerism, I'm not sure how good that is. Okay. So couples who attend church, synagogue, or mosque together, they report higher levels of marital success. The key word that I have here in capital is together, as it will become very evident in the next slide. So going together. Couples who say yes to the statement, God is the center or is at the center of our marriage, couples who agree with that statement are at least 26% more likely to report being very happy in their marriage. Notice this has nothing to do with the marriage. This has to do with your relationship with God, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is predictive of how good your marriage is. And how, not just happy, but how very happy and satisfied with your spouse you are. Okay? So if you look here, so the first bar is neither the wife or the husband goes to the mosque. The second bar is that the wife only attends regularly. The third bar, the husband only attends regularly. And the last one is that they both attend regularly. So to really get the effect of this, it has to be that both the husband and the wife go together regularly. Not just Ramadan, and then after Ramadan, we really don't see the masjid anymore, but it's for them to go regularly. Personally, even for me and for my husband, we both struggle because we want to, time is very precious. There isn't that much time. We have 3 kids, and there's a lot going on. So we want to, if we're going to do a halaqah, we want it to be both of us at the same time. It's so difficult to find halaqahs where you have the couples attending at the same time. It's tons of things for women and halaqas for women, which tend to be during the day, and then very, few halaqas here and there for men. That contributes to a skewed, maybe one partner becoming way more spiritually ahead and another one lagging behind spiritually. So that by itself is a problem. The other problem is that you're not spending time together. I am a strong proponent for having halaqas where both attend together. Now, you have to be very selective, and you have to make sure that you're doing it with people who really understand gender boundaries really well, so things don't go in the wrong direction. That's another recommendation I would strongly advocate for this masjid and for people who are visiting from other masajid to really try to implement that, to have somebody, a teacher come or something where both the wife and the husband are together, because that you could use that as a time for connection. And then look at this. The first bar here is that both or neither the husband or the wife believe that God is at the center of the marriage. The next bar is only wife believes that. Next one is only husband believes that. The last one is that both feel that God is at the center of the marriage. Note here that this is the first one, or the first factor I show you, where both men and women value this. So you see that both men and women report being very happy, 77 and 76, and both equally so. Before it was, yes, both the men and the women, this contributes to their happiness in their marriage and their satisfaction with the marriage, but the wife is a little bit higher on this one. This is the first factor I show you where attending regularly at the mosque or halaqah, that both the husband and wife are equally very happy and satisfied with their marriage when God is at the center of their marriage. Okay, the other thing, which I think this one is a pretty obvious one, is what your ideas are about marriage and parenthood. So if you are already, and some of you are single in the room, if you are seeking out a partner, it's really important to see what their idea is about family values. And people who get married, where both the husband and wife are very family-centered, and it's not like, okay, I got married because society and everybody and every auntie asked, when are you going to get married? So I got married. And then when we got married, the next day, everybody's asking, are you pregnant yet? When are you going to have the first kid? So we had the first kid. And then we had the first kid, and everybody's like, oh, how could you? Don't you feel guilty? The kid doesn't have a brother, doesn't have a sister. So we had the brother and the sister. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're having too many kids. You should slow down and think about life. You should stop having kids. So people who go into it and they're like, they want to be parents. They want to do it because they feel like they're adding to society. They want to do it because they want to take this as an opportunity to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They want to do it because they want to invest in the child so they can then go on to be a sadaqah jariyah for them, a continuous sadaqah for them. They want to do it because they want to contribute to society and make good citizens, because we have a lot of bad ones. When you go in with that mentality, then having children actually adds to the happiness in the marriage and does not take away from it. All right, so you look here, if you look here, that you see that the dark blue again is that people who go into the marriage with not very strong positive feelings about raising children, they're doing it because they don't have to. And then the other bar, the light bar, is that people who have strong feelings about raising children. Okay? Way higher for the people who have these strong feelings. And there is, again, for both the husband and the wife. But look at that. So the first few predictors, it was both the husband and wife feeling very happy if they score high on these predictors. But it was tilted a little bit towards the wife. Like the wife was always reaping a little bit more happiness out of that factor. Yeah? And then we had the faith and believing in God and seeing that both men and women are high, about equally high, when there's faith and having God at the center of the marriage. With this predictor here, you see that actually when there's family values, that this is a little bit, not a lot more, but a little bit more important for fathers who come into the mix already. Because then they're more willing to do chores, to spend time with the kids, because they feel that this is an important family value. So for the single people in the room, if you are, this is something in a partner, having family values that not only is it going to make you happy, but it's going to make the brothers even more happier having these family values and going in a marriage. Okay. So relational factors. So this is the relationship between the husband and the wife. So here is what many studies have shown, is that this is not a secret, but after having a baby, the frequency of intimacy might be compromised a little bit, and that this has been shown study after study to really compromise life satisfaction and satisfaction with the marriage. That marriage or married fathers and mothers who report having an above average intimate life compared to ones who report having lower than average, they're way less likely to think about divorce, think about separation, get divorced, and way more happy in their marriage. And this is, by the way, goes for both the men and for the women. Sometimes people, women might think this is, well, a man's territory and, it's a chore that you're fulfilling, but it actually makes both the women and the men equally happy in the marriage. 39% points for the females, even 1% higher, and 38% for the males. Notice, I want to point your attention to that this, so far, out of all the 7 predictors we have discussed so far, is the highest contributor to your marital satisfaction, is having a healthy, intimate life. And particularly for the wife, okay, that having a fulfilling, intimate life is more so it's much more fulfilling when there is already their high-end generosity, and we're going to talk about generosity next and what that means in terms of marriage, and there's a high commitment, and look at this, high religious faith. Like, you being more religious actually gives you a more fulfilling, intimate life, okay, which is a lot, very different than other religions who actually see them as separate and actually see intimacy as a reason for procreation and having kids, period. That's not Islam. Okay? So this is something we did a lecture here a few weeks, maybe a couple of months ago, on the psychological and biological differences between men and women. And particularly when it comes to this, there's certainly differences between men and women in this area. And particularly for women, what happens during the day in all of the other rooms in the house is very influential in what happens in the bedroom. More so for women than for men. So this is something to take into account. Why is intimacy really important? Again, this is a subject that probably deserves a lecture on its own, so I'm not doing it justice in any way. But very quickly, I'll tell you that intimacy is involved in releasing feel-good hormones and chemicals, like serotonin, which the #1 treatment for depression is you increase serotonin levels by antidepressant pills. Well, you can get that for free. It increases prolactin. It increases oxytocin. And oxytocin is something that is released to make you bond. Like when you're like, oh, I feel like talking to a friend, or I feel like going out for coffee, that's oxytocin, making you socially bond. Well, that's also released during intimacy. And so it helps you bond in the relationship, and it reduces stress. So couples, or what I've noticed is that couples do the opposite of that, is that when they're stressed out, they basically abstain from intimacy. But that's exactly what they need to be doing when they're stressed out, because of this biological release of hormones and chemicals. Okay. Again, we have not seen bars that look like that. In all of the other predictors, we have not seen the difference between the 2 bars being so much like that. And this is the first one out of all of the 7 where you see a whopping, like 40% difference, increase in reporting being very happy and satisfied with the marriage when this is an aspect of marriage that's being addressed. Okay, so the other one that I mentioned in the previous slide, saying that is a predictor particularly for women in terms of how satisfied they are with intimacy, is what's called generosity. And you're thinking, okay, we know what generosity is, but let me define it, talk about what generosity means in the realm of marriage, okay? Because there's a whole other project also focusing on generosity. And generosity in a marriage, what that means is the virtue of giving good things to spouse freely and abundantly. What that means is that you're not doing it in a reciprocal manner. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. That's actually the worst thing you can do in a matter, is this exchange, reciprocity kind of thing is very detrimental to marriages. You want to give and don't expect, okay? And probably not just for a marriage, I guess generally in life. Also, doing small acts of services. So you wake up, and maybe your husband or your wife brings you a cup of tea, or a cup, or a cup of coffee in the bedroom, or downstairs. Or, you know what, I've warmed up your cup for you. Small little acts like that. It doesn't have to be expensive gifts, although that's not bad too. But, small acts of goodness like this really is really very helpful in a marriage. and expression of affection, display of respect. So if I have to say is that, it's funny one time, sitting with a couple, and the woman was complaining and saying, I wish, like, you know, every time I ask him where I want to go to eat, he's like, oh, I don't know, wherever you want to go. And like, he's thinking he's being courteous to his wife. She's thinking, oh, I can't respect this man that can't make decisions. And then she goes on and complains about how like he doesn't make decisions, and I can't respect him. And all I want is a man that I can respect. And then he's complaining and saying, well, you know what? All I want is a woman that respects me. And they both are in complete agreement. I'm like, you know what? We're done for the day. You both agree with each other. You want a man that you can respect. He wants to be respected. Then that's what you need to work on. Subhanallah. So spouses who score really high on this generosity scale and they do these things, they report, again, 32% on being very happy. 32% more points on being very happy. Again, so far we had intimacy being the highest so far. Really close to that comes generosity. This is for free. And it's an investment of 30 seconds to make coffee. Or, you know what? You wake up in the morning, you need to do chores, and then you notice that your husband put gas in your car. And you're in a rush of time, and then you're like, he put gas in my car. It is like the biggest gift you can give your partner. And it really does change their marriage. It really does. Okay? Again, generosity, doing these little acts of goodness here and there, is one of the top 5 predictors of reporting, again, not just happy, but being very happy in your marriage, decreasing divorce, decreasing chances of separation. Okay? Again, we haven't seen the differences between the 2 bars being so large like this, except for factor number 7, intimacy, compared to all of the other factors. You see this for both, by the way, men and women. 50, 46, they're close enough. So for both men and women, small acts of kindness here and there really makes all the difference in the world. Okay? The other factor is what's called commitment. We did a lecture here, and actually I did it on a lot of other messages too, so if you didn't catch it here, you probably caught it in some other masjid, where we talked about the characteristics of long marriages, but that are also happy and satisfactory, right? When I say happy, when I say long, I mean like 25 years. I don't mean 10 years, okay? And one of the things we talked about, or one of the characteristics, was commitment. And what that means is that these couples use we kind of language way more than meanness kind of language. And I don't mean like mean, I mean like me. Okay, so, they use we, us, our, not my money. I work for it, so it's my money. Versus, I, me, mine. So couples who actually use more we words, it really is very good for their marriage. But not only that, I don't want to go into this too much because I discussed it in the other seminar, but when you measure their unconscious response, but they can't actually report to you in words, and you measure their sweat glands, you measure their heartbeat, you measure all of these nervous system things, you see that when couples use we words, we, us, our, that you see that actually their nervous system is way more calm, so no sweating, all of that stuff, than when they're using I words. That when they're using I, me, maybe they're not fighting, but they're just talking normally and they're saying I, mine, my, that actually their nervous system is more hyped up than when they're not. And of course, having a hyped up nervous system means more heart attacks, more strokes, a lot of other things. I'm not going to go into details right now. So it's a good idea to start getting into the habit of using our, our stuff, us, we. It's not like when the kids are bad, they're your kids. When they're accomplishing things, they're my kids. They're our kids, good or bad, right? So using this kind of language has extremely high association with being very happy in your marriage and very successful, and reduces your chances of divorce and separation. It reduces your chances of divorce proneness 6-fold. So 6 times. That is a lot. 6 times reduction in the chances of divorce. Okay? And increases your happiness and satisfaction with the marriage triple as much as if you didn't have that. That is, honestly, if I was told that therapy or counseling or some voodoo yoga thing is going to increase my happiness 3 times, I'm going to invest thousands of dollars. We all would, right? If it's going to tell me that it's going to prevent if I, go before marriage and say, here's premarital counseling, can you reduce, my chances of divorce? Well, I'm going to let you reduce your chances of divorce by 6 times, 6-fold. You will pay tons of money for that. You could do this. All you have to do is be watchful of how you talk about your partner, with your partner, by using pronouns that is us, we, instead of using things like I and mine. All you have to do. Very simple, but simple thing to do, and you're thinking, well, it's a tongue work, but everything that the tongue does, the heart also beats to the same thing. The brain, your mind, your unconscious is very responsive to that too. Okay? So if you look here, when you look at being very happy, again, separated for wives and husbands on the right, is that people who are score below average on commitment, they compared to people who are above average on commitment, the difference between the bars is a lot. And it's certainly worthy of making that little change, like, I'm not going to say today, but like right now. Okay? And it's the same thing for husbands and for wives. So it's not just for wives. They want to hear that everything is lovey-dovey and everybody's happy and I love you, you love me. No, it's also for husbands as well. And it increases your chances of divorce for both men and women considerably. Okay? All right. The 10th factor is family time. So couples who spend more alone time, not spending time with all the kids around, but alone time together, they are significantly way more happy in their marriage, and they are less likely to think about divorce or think about separation. Look at this. Okay? Husbands and wives who spend quality time together, I'm not saying that you have a scheduled time once a week to fight, but quality time together and not with each person on their phone. That's not quality time. Okay? A husband and wives who spend alone time once a week or more are about 50% more likely to be very happy in their marriage. Wives, listen to this, not just wives and especially husbands, more so for the husbands who also devote time investing in parenting and playing with their kids, report more happiness in their marriage. Okay? So I think what I'm asking you to do is that to be not only do I want you to put your marriage before parenting, which pretty much you probably got that message by now, but to be selfish about your marriage and to protect that institution and to invest in that institution by putting time aside, even if you need to hire a babysitter for a couple of hours to make sure that that gets taken care of. Okay? And it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't have to be a fancy restaurant. It doesn't have to be a financial, everybody, you don't have to be rich to do this. You can put some time aside to just having quality time. It can be at home. You don't have to leave the house. It can be in the backyard. It can be in the park next door. Wherever it is. This doesn't have to be expensive. All right? So let's skip that. So let me summarize, okay? Separated by husbands and wife. The top 5 predictors for marital satisfaction, and I'm not just saying like happy in the marriage. I'm saying people who are very happy in their marriage. Okay? For women, for wives, and husbands, the first 4 are pretty much the same for both of them. One is, the first one that probably you have now known by now is to have a healthy, intimate life. People so underestimate the importance of that in a marriage. But the other thing is above average commitment, both for husband and wife, to have, use we, being committed, seeing the marriage as a communal couplehood, so not individual. Above average generosity towards the husband for the wife, above average generosity towards the wife for the husband. Do you see? So the wife is happy when she's showing above average generosity towards her husband, not that the husband is showing generosity towards her. Do you see what I mean? The husband is happier when you have generosity towards his wife, not that the wife is showing generosity towards him. Are you with me? So when we have that kind of attitude. And then the attitude towards raising the kids, that they both are family-centered, that this is something that they desired, it wasn't an unwanted kind of pregnancy. And then the last one is different between husbands and wife. For women, having above-average social support is really important to being very happy in their marriage. For husbands, this one surprised me quite a bit. This one kind of surprised me, is that when both spouses attend or have more spiritual, marital spirituality, that husbands tend to be very happy in their marriage. Do you see that? That really was like, I had to like really check this multiple times because I didn't believe it. Okay? But here's the thing, I think. For women, it's not a secret, I'm not insulting any brothers here, but women tend to have better social skills. I'm not like saying that all men don't, you know, I'm sure you all do, but you know, even like, you know, girls will have better social skills. So having the social support, when she gets the social support, that kind of substitutes a little bit for this. Think about what you get when you attend the mosque regularly. You get to know people, you get to socialize, you get to sit communally. Everybody sitting here is somewhat interested in faith, in their marriage, on working on their marriage. So you're with a group that you're very comfortable with, more homogenous group than outside. Oh, it is definitely a blessing. It's so a blessing. If people know like what the mosque can offer them, it's unbelievable. So for men, I'm not saying all men, but I'm saying on average, because men maybe social skills is not like is not as savvy as for women. So being in an environment like the mosque, where there is a topic of discussion, where there is, you know, the people that are out there are going to be very similar to how he's thinking, it's much easier for him to have social support and to talk about, you know, to make friends. But for women, if you're getting this from outside, then that is still important. It's still one of the top 10 for women. Don't get me wrong on that. But it's so much more for husbands, okay? So I can't overemphasize enough, and maybe like we can implement this at the masjid, is like really having activities that's geared towards men and women at the same time, where they can use that as a time of connection. And like, you know, you're giving a halaqah and you really, or the sheikh is saying something you really like, and you text your husband saying, this is so awesome, this is really like making me want to cry, and he texts you back and says, yeah, that resonated with me too. That is an opportunity for connection, and you're getting thawab for it. I just feel like it's a win-win deal. So inshallah, we need to do more of that. Okay, how about the top 5 predictors for not being prone to separation or divorce? For, and the first 3 here is the same, and then there's a little bit difference after that for men and women. For women, for wives, having an above average commitment for both men and women is number 1. Second on the list, again, is having a satisfactory intimate life. And number 3 is that both spouses attend or have marital spirituality. So not only is attending the mosque regularly and believing that God is at the center of your marriage is good for making you happy in your marriage, but it also treats divorce and separation in the marriage. It prevents it by quite a bit. Okay? Number 4 for women is above average social support. Okay, so that was kind of the same as the last one for in terms of happiness. And above average marital spirituality, again here for wives. For husbands, that having a generosity towards the wife. Above average, again, for husbands, above average generosity towards the wife. Not that the wife is showing me above average generosity. You see what I mean? So, subhanallah. All right. So, why is it that, generally speaking, again, we said that there was this sizable minority, 35%, that had all of these 10 predictors working in their favor to make them very happy in their marriage and way less likely to think about divorce and separation. But what is it about parenting that stretches out the marriage and reduces marital satisfaction one study after another? Well, one, hormonal changes, right? Pregnancy, there's hormonal changes there. You have higher levels of cortisol, which is a stress hormonal thing. So you might notice that, you know what, like I'm pregnant, how we're supposed to connect and be happy over this baby, and all we do is fight, right? That could have something to do with the cortisol levels. So maybe this is something for the men to be a little bit aware of, knowing the biology of your wife and what happens during pregnancy. And then there is after giving birth, you know, there is a percentage of women who will have depression, postpartum depression, as a result of having a children. And it's not the children that's causing on the depression, but it's rather the fluctuation of the hormones that's bringing on this depression. So inshallah, the brothers should be kind of aware of that. And then, of course, there's sleep deprivation. Who's happy when they're sleep deprived, right? With kids waking up throughout the night, not having a regular schedule, you're irritable the next day, and because you didn't get enough sleep, you're irritable the next day, so you fight more often, and then things escalate from there. And then body change, right? After having a kid, both men and women, okay, and more so maybe the women, their body's gonna change as a result of the pregnancy, as a result of hormonal. So maybe at the time she's not maybe, and because of also the hormonal changes, not just the body changes, maybe she's not feeling pretty anymore. And maybe you're not noticing and you're not saying enough, enough comments or complimentary things, while at the time that she really needs it. So we really gotta be sensitive during those times. And then you have reduction in having adult time, because the baby is like overruling and taking over the house, right? And a baby is kind of helpless. You can't just say, like, I'm just gonna ignore you and not change your diaper for 8 hours or not feed you because I wanna spend adult time. That really, you can't do that, because it's a helpless being and really basically depending on you for getting all its needs, food, shelter, all of that. The other thing is that you have just switched stages, that this is a transition. And with every transition, it has its own stress associated with it, because am I gonna do this right? And then the other thing, and probably the biggest one here I would emphasize, is that it takes away from everybody's need to feel like they're in control of their life and that things are predictable. So you make plans, oh, the baby's sick and they have fever, we have to cancel the plans. That is a stressor, right? I have to cancel work. I have to find, I have to do all of these arrangements. Or we have to cancel. We can't go to the Ramadan iftar because my daughter is sick. We can't go do this event because we're in the emergency room. That does kind of like strain. But here's the thing. Having children is going to reduce the marital satisfaction. Of course, if we're going to think critically and try to implement these 10 factors, inshallah, it's actually going to be improving your marital satisfaction. But it's going to stretch out your marriage or reduce marital satisfaction more so if your marriage was already strained and stretched out to begin with. Okay? So some people will say that, oh, well, I'm going to have children because my marriage sucks and hopefully that will bring us together. No. Actually, that's the opposite. Okay? But if you have a healthy marriage to begin with, then partners continue to be healthy even after they become parents. So it's really important, inshallah, that if you're thinking about kids or if you have kids, that you are going to continually invest in your marriage. If I were to give you if this was a parenting workshop, and I were to give you the best parenting tool, the best parenting advice for making the child the best possible child, I would say work on your marriage. When people ask for parenting classes, I say, how's the marriage? And if the marriage is good and it's not good, I say, you don't need parenting classes, you need marital classes first, marriage classes first before parenting classes. And you'll see why towards the end. All right, so what can we do? So inshallah, for the interest of time, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go through all of them. But here is a few exercises I picked specifically for parents who are married, because they apply to every married couple, but specifically to parents. And these were adopted from Gottman and Gottman. These are like the experts on marriage, like the speaking authority on marriage. One is an exercise called, there's no time for mind reading, you have to give me a clue. And here is what I'd like you to do rather more quickly than I thought about, given the time, the interest of time, is that I want you to ask yourself, and it's one parter at a time, so you can't be doing the question at the same time, okay? So you decide who goes first. What do you need from me in this marriage? And then how I want you to answer this question is by writing 5 things that you need from your spouse. Like, I don't want you to be like, well, here's what I can do to make the marriage better. No. I want you to ask your spouse and tell your spouse, here are 5 things that you can do. It could be value, emotion, ideals, whatever it is, to make the relationship better. For each need that you wrote down, I want you to come up with 3 concrete actions that your spouse can do to actually fulfill that need. Okay? We can't do 5 today, but why don't we get some practice, maybe do 1 or 2, and then we'll go on to the next exercise, and you can finish that at home, inshallah. So go ahead, focus one partner at a time. So maybe the wife asks the husband, or the husband asks the wife, and then they switch roles. So let's maybe do 1, okay? In the interest of time. So go ahead, do 1, and try to do this. But I want both partners to go. And if you agree with it, make sure the person signs it, and then you can have it as evidence. So for the people who came in late in the back, Fatima, call you out on it. Wa alaikum salam. This is a quiz that we did earlier to assess whether your marriage is child-centered or not. If you, both husbands and wives have to do it, so every statement I want you to write true or false, and then count how many you have that's true. If you have more than 6, we're in trouble, and we need to switch things where the priority is the marriage and not the parenting. See lots of smiles, so that's good. You won't be the same for the last exercise I give you. Okay, I'm sorry to cut you short, but I really want to give you the other stuff I have prepared for today. But inshallah, you know what you have to do? Continue it at home, okay? And make this an investment for yourself. Keep a folder for yourself. Keep these exercises in it, how you answered it. Go back to it when you're friend, be like, oh yeah, I remember that time when we're both giggling as we're writing down our needs. And subhanAllah, maybe that will be like, at that moment, it will, subhanAllah, like calm your anger at that moment. Okay, but invest in your marriage. Okay. Okay, but I'm going to give you an example, just so you kind of know if you did it, not right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. But let's say, for example, that one of your needs is, I need to feel loved. Okay, whether it's the wife or the husband that says that. Then you come up with a list of actions. You have to let your partner know, because my idea of how to feel love might be very different than my husband's idea. And the mistake that we make often is that we give to other people what we think is good for us. No, we need to give to other people in their language of what they think is good for them. So then, you would tell your partner, well, I feel loved when you hold my hand, when we snuggle, when you sit next to me when watching TV, when you rearrange your day and arrange for a date night and I'm not involved in the planning, when you do small favors for me, like making me coffee, putting gas in my car. Be very specific. So a lot of times, from my experience, what I've seen is that the wife will say something very general, like, you don't love me. And the husband is like, I do. And the miscommunication is that I don't know how to love you, is really how he should answer. Is like, I don't know what love is to you. Why don't you teach me how to love you? When do you feel loved? What things do I do that makes you feel that I do love you? Because maybe saying I love you, that's not how she perceives love is. So you have to be specific with the exact actions. Here's how I want you to love me. Here's how I want you to demonstrate that you understand this need for me. The other one, and again, I'm going to be fast, and maybe you can just copy the exercise down and do it at home, is that all of us, our marriage basically is sometimes, very often, we make kind of proposals for connections, okay? And there's 3 reactions you can have when your husband or your wife makes a statement as a proposal for connection. One of them is good, the other 2 is bad. One of them is that you turn towards, which is good. The other is turn against or turn away. Turning towards is that there's a bit for connection, and I'll give you an example to make sense. This is an excellent thing for the marriage, that you then take this as an opportunity. This is growth, development for the marriage. The other one is turning away, and you might not be doing it intentionally. So, your husband or your wife says something as an opportunity, like to connect, or they're sharing a feeling with you, and you not intentionally kind of ignore them. And maybe paying attention to, okay, what was that math question you asked me, Muhammad? What was that project that's due when? And your husband just said something very personal. That even though you're not doing it on purpose, you don't mean to hurt his feelings or her feelings. That person is thinking, oh, my feelings just got ignored. And I know you're doing it for a good cause because the child needs you at that moment. But we really have to balance and know our priorities. And the priorities are the personal feeling that's being addressed at that moment. And then, of course, the worst is that you purposely turn against the feeling that was just shared. By ignoring it, by making fun of it, by being sarcastic, by putting it down. That person, whether it's the husband or the wife, is going to learn to suppress their feelings and learn, like, you know what? You're not the person I'm going to share things with. And they build high walls and guards around them, and they don't share stuff. And then sometimes I'll hear the wife say that, you know what? My husband, like, he doesn't share anything with me. I was the last one to know that his mother was suffering from cancer. And I'm his wife. How he could... we have to provide a comfortable, safe... When people share personal information, it takes a lot of courage. And it takes sometimes a lot of rehearsing in your mind. Do I say it this way? Do I not say it this way? And if there isn't a comfortable, trustworthy platform to share that on, they're not going to share it. And they're going to suppress it. Which is bad for them too, because then they're not going to get help with it from the person that loves them the most. So here's an example, and inshallah you do this at home, is that your partner tells you that, I am very tired. This is a very common statement that we all say, yes? I come to you and I say, you know what? I'm very tired. So turning away from it would be like, oh, Jannah, what did you get on your test today? I'm not doing it intentionally. I'm just paying attention to my child at the moment, and I completely overlooked the feeling that was just mentioned or the statement that was just made by my husband, or vice versa. A turning against would be, and this is the worst, would be, oh my God, you complain all the time. Complain, complain, complain. And maybe that day you're really tired. Or, oh, my back hurts. All you do is complain about your back. And then that person might be really going through genuine pain at that moment. And when you say this, you've dismissed them. You've made them feel like, you know what, you're certainly not the right person I'm going to tell anything to anymore. And it just makes the relationship really bad. Turning towards would be, oh man, you're tired. Did the kids give you a hard time today? Do you want me to spank them for you? No, obviously, you're joking. You're not going to do that. But you know what, let me go talk to them. And then you go to the kids and be like, you know what, if you do this to your mom again, if you talk to your father like this, subhanAllah, maybe that's, and then all of a sudden, there's like, oh, we're both on the same side. You get me, I get you. Or you know what, did you have a tough day at work today? Was your supervisor being so bossy today again? Did were they making that comments again? Did somebody make comments about being Muslim again at work? Then it's a different conversation. And all you said is, I'm tired. You're not making any investment. I know sometimes the spouse is scared to say, oh, why are you tired? Because they're thinking the spouse is going to ask them to do something for them. But sometimes you don't have to do anything. You're just going to offer free words. That's all you're going to do. But guess what? It's going to make you happy for free. It's going to make him happy for free. Right? So this is really important. So maybe when you go home, think about kind of like connecting moments, a feeling that was shared, a personal. And even if you did it wrong in the past, we all did it wrong. We all still do it wrong. It's okay. Be like, oh, if I were to do this again, this is what my toward respond would be. Because before it was against, or before it was away. Okay? All right. The other thing is that you have to plan romance in your relationship. I don't care if you've been married for 55 years. Okay? And I know people are like, oh yeah, but that's kind of like romance has to be spontaneous, and it's not like fun if it's not spontaneous. I want him to like come and surprise me and bring a white horse home and ride it. No. Okay, that actually you need to plan ahead. Let's get real, right? When you were engaged, I promise you that before you came to see your fiancé, or before that you dressed up, you selected the best cologne, that you made sure that you had your best hijab that was stain-free. There was planning involved, okay? So I want you to really calendar, you set this up and you plan it ahead. And guess what? You're going to be in anticipation. I know 2 weeks from now, we're going to go to the movies, or here's how we're going to spend time together, or we're going to read a book together, or we're going to, whatever your quality, romance, whatever you do, okay? But it has to be planned ahead, okay? Particularly of your parents. And by the way, planning ahead does not mean that the last chore of the day is romance. No. Planning ahead means that the first chore of the day is romance. Do you see what I mean? So you're not connecting when you've fed the baby. You have made the dinner. Your kids were fighting, and you are just ready to punch somebody in the wall, but you're worried that social services will come and pick up your kids. No. You don't wait till you're completely exhausted. You've given up all your energy to everybody around you, and here, whatever iota of energy I don't have left, I'm going to give my spouse now. That's not romance. You have to plan it. It's not a chore. So that both of you are finding this an emotional and physical connection that will leave the marriage in a better place. And again, we don't have to be extravagant. I know that you see Facebook posts and, my husband surprised me with a Hawaii trip and all of these things, and it makes people feel like, oh my, and so all he did is write some poetry for me, and got me a card from the 99-cent store. But here's the thing, though, is I would really, really like that just like the pictures that you post are encoded with the time and the location that you took the picture, I would like that picture to be encoded with the history that comes before you wrote that post. Like my husband cheated on me 2 times. Real stories. Okay? So set that aside. Whatever that's romantically meaningful for you and financially not straining the marriage, because that would make it worse, all you need is a time commitment. That's it. Okay? And if there is any kind of financial involvement, it could be maybe the babysitter fees or something. Okay? Oh, I have it set up as April 30th, which is today. So the males in the room, start planning. All right. The last one, and I really, this is the one I kind of wanted to practice, but I don't want to leave on a bad note. But here what we want to do is you work on how you're going to handle conflict in the relationship, conflict resolution. Because when you have children, this is everybody who's married, whether you have children or not, conflict is a big thing in a marriage. Everybody fights. And actually, some of the arguments you have in a marriage will never be solved. That's normal. Okay? But when you have kids, you're stretched out during the day. If you're a stay-at-home mom, we don't have time to go through all of the different packages and scenarios, but if you're a stay-at-home mom, you've been with kids all day, and you want to use words. You've been babbling with a baby all day. You have been drooled on. You have been around not the most pleasant smells, and you're waiting for your husband to come home to connect, and you just want to throw the babies to him. And what, you don't want to talk to me? So what? And then he comes in, and he had a very long day at work. His supervisor was not being the nicest to him. There was power struggle involved. Thousands of people have been laid off at his company. He's thinking, am I next? And then you throw the babies to him. Who's wrong in this situation? Neither. You had a tough day, and you do deserve a moment of relaxation. He had a very tough day, and you deserve, a moment. So you need to hear from him. He needs to hear from you. Who goes first? Let's go back to generosity principle and say, if you have to go first, you go first. If you have to let the other person go first, go for it. Okay? So set aside time for conflict, and usually it's not during the fight. Because when you're angry, the thinking part of your brain, the frontal lobe, is off. You're going to say things I guarantee that you will regret, and I guarantee that your spouse will never forget. Okay? So this is the part of another talk, but if you're angry, there's things that you can do. You can do isti'adha. You can get up and make wudu. You can change your position. You can leave for a little bit, come back with coffee bean and surprise your spouse. Whatever, but do set aside time for conflict. I'm not saying sweep under the rug and all is lovey-dovey. No. Do set aside time to be like, you know what? I got you that coffee, whatever, that's good. Well, now that you've calmed down, let's talk about what happened, because we don't want it to happen again. Because we wasted 10 minutes of being angry at each other, and that's 10 minutes of a marriage that I really value. What did we do wrong? When you discuss conflict, I know you're going to have a list of 100 things you want to talk about. Only one. Do not talk about more than one idea during that conflict session only. When you talk about conflict, there's going to be role-playing. One is going to be a speaker, one is going to be a listener. You cannot go back and forth. And you cannot interrupt as a listener. So the speaker is talking about conflict from their point of view. It can be unfair. It can be biased. It can be all wrong. That's not the time to say all of these things to them. You are allowed to interrupt for very specific reasons. A question to clarify, not in a sarcastic manner, or to interrupt by nodding, by saying yes, to let the person know that you're listening, or to summarize things that they've said so far so you don't forget. That's it. Once the speaker is done, the person you have agreed, that's saying their point of view, even if it's entirely wrong, then the listener is going to say, let me see if I got this right. From your point of view, we fought because this, and that. If you've gotten or if you've misunderstood, then the speaker is going to say, actually, no, that's not what I meant. Clarify, you summarize again. Then we switch roles. Okay? I can't guarantee that the conflict is going to go away because that's a part of life. But I can guarantee that it will leave you with less resentment and better resiliency to go back to where you were than if you didn't do it this way. Okay? So inshallah, try to kind of like practice this at home. Or, you know, and it doesn't, you don't have to have a fight. Like it could be there's an issue of conflict that comes up and you know, you say today, you know what? Well, let's practice that exercise and let's apply it to this conflict today. Okay? All right. Okay. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to say is that you can actually use the baby to connect. So one cute thing that you can do, you can actually use the baby to exercise. Like you can do squats and have the baby like be a tunnel so the baby can go through. And like while you're holding hands, because touch is really important in a marriage. And touch is really important because it reduces your stress hormones in the body and for many other reasons. So, you know, have that time, maybe during nap time, go for a walk where you're connecting with your spouse and that you're walking the baby. So try to multitask where it serves your marriage better. Okay? One thing, if you have young babies and even adolescents, you have to have sleep time schedule that you're adamant about. Because then after that, when there is structure and there's less chaos, there's less stress, and there's more time for you to be adults at nighttime and to do adults activity. So if it's, you know, winter time, your kids might be sleeping at 7 o'clock at night. That leaves you from 7 to 10 to do adults activities or to connect or have adult times or just not have kids screaming. Okay? All right. Why should we care? Why should I care about, why can't just, I think about parenting, making sure that my child is set up to go to Harvard University, all of the extracurricular activities to make them just like amazing. We make all of these plans and like put my marriage second. Isn't this like amazing? Isn't this not selfish? Isn't it like gonna make me feel less guilty? Isn't it all good? Well, here's the thing, is that when the marriage is strong and stable, that it has the most positive impact on your child as an adult. And it has and that child grows up to know how to have a good marriage. That is actually a predictor for how happy your child will be in their marriage and in their adulthood. Not only that, but children who are raised by both parents, by married parents, tend to be more successful than the ones raised by a single parent. They tend to make more money when they're 40, considerably more money than children who were not raised by married parents. And also, the key thing here is that children who grew up with both mom and dad in the house in low conflict marriage. This is why the conflict exercise is maybe not the cutest out of all of the things I give you to do, but it is really important that you get into the habit of practicing conflict that way, because having less conflict at home, married parents, it leaves you with better off children who are less anxious when they grow up, less likely to get depression, get better pay, find better partners, have better marriages in so many other ways. I'm going to stop talking here because I've been talking for a long time, and I think you've had enough, and I will take Q&A at this point. Okay? I'll leave this on while you have Q&A. Right. And then we have a mic if you have a question and answer. Yes. Let me tell you something. It wasn't until the 1970s that parenting or parent became a verb. Before that, parent to parent was not a verb. It's a natural thing that people do. So one thing I don't want you to do is go on Amazon.com and type parenting books, because you're going to have maybe 123,000 books come up. That is overwhelming. And I assure myself and everybody in this room that I'm doing something that will require me to save a lot of money for therapy for my kids, according to one of these books. That's not what you want to do. Go with the simple approach, right? Children are human beings. So I would just treat them the same way, the being genuine, and then start out being simple. It shouldn't be that hard to raise a child, right? But the number one thing I would advise is to have a sleeping time. If I were to recommend a book and to start with that, I would say start with a book on how to set up a schedule for them sleeping, because that can just release so much anger and stress in the house and chaos. Just noise by itself in the house is a stressor. But don't overwhelm yourself with a lot of information. Take little bites at a time, apply it, and then get more. Don't get a lot, feel overwhelmed, and be like, I can't apply all of this, I already forgot, I'm not going to do anything. Inshallah, and that will work. Okay, anything else? Any other questions? 4 minutes? Yes? I can't think of one off my hand because all my kids by about 6 months, they are sleeping on a schedule. And I remember one time we had people over, like a big gathering at my house, and one of them was a pediatrician. She's like, it was a lot of adults in the house. My kids were sleeping at 7 or 7:30. And she said, you gave them Benadryl. I said, wallahi, I didn't. That's their schedule, they sleep at this. And she really believes I gave them medication to put them to sleep so they don't wake up. Like, I'm not going to do that to my kids, just to have a gathering. But it helps out so much, okay? Find ways that, and also remember that the parent comes into this world with their own personality. Like, there are parts of personality that you're born with, that you don't train, and you'll notice when you have kids that, one kid is just inherently stubborn. You didn't teach them that. They came into the world like that. One is just inherently less competitive. You didn't teach them that. They came into the world go with the flow, go with their genetic package. Never go against their genetic package. So if you have a very kind, not very competitive, my son is like that. My son is very not competitive. He's very kind, he's very generous. To go against that and really make him feel competitive will make him anxious. It won't help him. But then somebody who's competitive, you can then use it for their advantage. Or, in a good way. So just go with the flow. Every child is different. There isn't going to be one book that's the prescription for all kind of parenting. And I'm very much against prescriptive parenting books. It tells you, they say this, you say this. They do this, you do. When it comes to real life, it's very difficult to then have this robotic kind of prescription. Okay, any other questions? All right, okay.
You are very private, and so you don't like your kids to see. My life was never even though I lived with my kids, but they did not see there is a problem, or it was never a problem. But there is, marriage is always a little bit here and there.
Of course.
But now I hear in the study that they're saying you should show your kids there is here and there, beside the bills. We always oh, you didn't fight. But when it comes to us, me and him, it was never, my kids never saw anything. So they want dad and mom. They all think that we have that perfect life, that it just, even my daughter the other day said, you never kicked my dad out of the room. You never kicked my dad out of,
because he never gave, couch under the
because
bed.
he never gave you a reason. And my husband was there. We were all sitting in the bedroom together. And my daughter's older, and she said, she would have a lot of reasons to kick me out of the room. But her rule was the first rule when we first got married. No matter what, we're going to deal with it inside. And because I lived with somebody, a cousin, with my husband and a cousin in the first 11 months of our marriage, I told my husband, we are not to disclose anything from this door to that door.
Barakallahu fiki, this is
But is that healthy for the kids? Not to know that and my husband always protected me, I always protected him. But the kids didn't know that we
may Allah bless you. That's such an excellent question. I'm going to give you my take on this. And I'm not going to say that everybody out there agrees on that, okay? We were all told, keep the fights in the bedroom, never let the kids see. But here's the thing, though. The kids may not be seeing you verbally in conflict, but they feel the conflict. The walls in your house feel the conflict. So they feel the cold shoulder, that you are not you're kind of not noticing each other. They feel that. To me, and to some other studies, that's actually more detrimental to the kids to see this passive-aggressive scenario. Yes, we're not fighting with each other, we're saying good morning, But when you're in conflict, there's a lot of nonverbal cues that give it away. I think it's much more healthy to be genuine at all moments. When you're mad, you're mad. That's fine. You get mad at your kids. Does that mean you don't want them and you're going to kick them out of the house? No. But to be genuine in your feeling at all times, no matter who's there, but to handle it maturely and to demonstrate how do you, in a healthy, productive way, deal with conflict. That is a teaching lesson for them. Of course, if there's name calling, that's not healthy in any way. Do you see what I mean? Okay? Last question, inshallah. I said it, okay, barakallahu feek. So inshallah, barakallahu feekum, whatever that I said that was not good is from me, whatever that I said that inshallah, it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Barakallahu feekum for paying attention for that long. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marwa. We expected more people to come to this great workshop, but sorry to say, I don't know. I'm glad we're here, you're here, and I hope we will have more and more talk about this, inshallah. Thank you very much for coming, and please, we can put the seats back, will be great. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.